Okay, so I've done this as a bit of a follow-on from the snowmen I've been making, the ones that I've turned on the lathe, mainly because not everybody has a lathe. And I've made them like this before, as you can see. I did this a few years ago now as something for the kids to do and decorate for Christmas. So this one's just plain wood, and I've burnt in some details which I need to go over again. I've just waxed it. You can see it's a bit shiny. It needs a bit more of a polish, but I need to just make sure the face and that is a bit more defined. And all it is bits of log. So bit of willow basically. So it's the same stuff as I've made the other snowmen out of. It's the only difference being is rather than turn it on the lathe, I've just cut it into sections. So I've found different thicknesses of willow. I've got some here, so you can see. Obviously thick a bit, small a bit, and they kind of make a good snowman shape. And I did this a few years ago, like I said, and I made them out of, I think it was spruce, something like that. And the principle's the same. So basically you have a larger bit for the body, smaller bit for the head, and then the rest you can sort of mess about with and do what you want with it. But like for this one, all I've done is I've cut out a shape, again, out of a piece of the large one. So I've drawn what vaguely represents a sort of top hat kind of shape on the piece of wood, and I've cut it out. And that's the other thing, you don't need a lot of hand tools for this. So you need something to cut a piece of wood into sections like this, and you can do that with a handsaw, or if you've got a chop saw, but a handsaw, you can do it with hand tools basically. This so there's that. So you need something to cut your segments out of. I've made little indentations in the wood there just so that the little headpiece sits a bit neater in there, but you don't have to do that, or if you did you could just do it with a file. You don't have to cut the base in half, you can just use the whole piece, but I tend to find they just, I don't know, I prefer to do it like that, because then you can basically use one piece and make two bases out of it. To cut the hat out, again, all you need really is a pencil to draw out the shape, and something like this, which is a coping saw, and they come in all different sorts of sizes, but they're relatively inexpensive. You can pick one up for a couple of quid, and the blades are the same, they're not very expensive at all. The only other tool I've used is a cordless drill with a drill bit in it, and I forget the size, I think it's like 3mm, something like that. The size is not necessarily important, but for this it's kind of something to take note of, because I'm going to stick it together with this, or one of these. It's just bamboo skewers basically. So the drill bit is a similar size to the bamboo skewer. So to make the thing, once you've cut all your pieces and given them a sand, it's basically a case of sort of sticking it together. So again, same as I've made like the little groove here on the bottom, I flattened it off a bit easy, and it just, mainly because it sits better. So all I'm going to do is get my drill roughly where I want it and drill a hole. And that'll do for one bit of skewer, so I can pop that in there like that, and I'm just going to cut it off with a pair of snips. You want a fair bit showing, but not too much. Next thing to do then is roughly mark out where I'm going to drill a hole in the bottom. And there you go. And then you can just feed that on there. If you've got a bit of a gap there, you probably need to take a piece off your skewer. That's easy enough to do. Just cut a little bit off. I'm not gluing anything yet until I get everything sort of how I want it. But there you go. So there's your base. There's your body. The next thing is, again, just the head part, and that's the same kind of principle. So I'm just going to drill a hole roughly in the centre of that groove. And I'll get a good sort of position on that. I think that'll do. So roughly in the centre of this, I'll drill a hole. And again, bit of skewer in there. Actually, I'll just cut that point off. You can give it a bit of a tap with a hammer if you need to. So it's kind of like a dowel joint really. And again, just cut, skewer, next piece on. Make sure it fits in there nice and tight. There it is. There we go. And again with the hat, how you put that is entirely up to you. You can put it straight on the top to an angle. I always tend to go at an angle. I don't know, just think it gives it a bit more character. I've cut the hat, or rather the section of wood that I cut the hat out of is a little bit thinner just to make it easier to cut. So I'm just going to drill a hole about here at an angle. For the hat, and then in the centre of the hat, carefully, I'm going to drill a hole. And same process, get you a bit of skewer. And then cut off the bit you don't need. If there's any feathering on the piece of wood, you can also just give it a bit of a sand. There we go. And that is pretty much it really. The rest of it is detailing. You know, I've cut a little piece of willow. These are something that I've cut out for another project, but they're basically thin strips of willow, and I've cut a triangle shape which I will then stick on somewhere as a nose, and that's it. That's as hard as it needs to be. It's something you can do with kids, as long as you're sort of alright or they're okay. Very small children, I'd recommend you cut out the pieces of wood yourself and stick them together, and then just let them have a go with the paint. You can paint them however you want, you know, but it's a quick, simple thing to do, and most people can find a log from somewhere. I mean, this is willow from our garden, so it's from a tree that it's from the same one tree that I used the wood for the ones that I've turned, but it's twisted willow, and it's one that I pollarded. So I've got quite a variety of lengths and thicknesses of wood. Not all of it straight, as you would expect with a twisted willow, but that's it basically. You can make them as characterful as you want. This one I've pyrographied, very rudimentary. My skills in that are, and I'll probably do the same here so they kind of match, but each one will be individual. And like I said, it's a great project for kids. It takes next to no time to do. You can pre-cut all the bits and have your kids stick it together and then decorate it however they want. You know, a little bit of cloth for a scarf. You can put arms on them if you want, little bits of stick, you know, a bit of glue. To glue it together, I'm just going to use super glue, which again, if you're doing this with kids, you probably want to use something a little bit more friendly, or you can do these parts first. So I'm just going to get a bit of super glue. Some on the base, some in there for the stick. A little bit around there. Push it in. There we go. Same on the top. And then the same for the hat. There, done. Depending on how I decide to decorate it, I might put the nose on a bit later, just because it's easier if I do burn the details in, just to not have the nose in the way. But the nose I'll just stick on with a piece of, if I haven't lost it, with a bit of super glue, and that'll be that really. Okay, so I'll put a couple of pictures on at the end of this of these ones complete, and the ones that I've made previous years, the ones that we did for the kids, so you've got a bit of an idea of what they can turn out like. Right, there you go. Simple Christmas snowman decoration from an old log, using very small amount of tools, nothing special, anything you can buy from a DIY shop, like a saw, a hammer, drill bit, coping saw. Alright, thanks for watching.